just going to say it outright. Even if it is just for clickbait and you're just doing it to make money, in fact, that probably makes it even worse, it is still not acceptable to build a channel around hatred for another country. And that's what this arsehole is doing. Pardon my French, but this guy is a complete and utter jerk. You've probably heard about the video that's out there saying that Australia is not real. This is the guy. Someone actually said to me on one of my recent videos, I'm surprised you haven't done a review of that video yet. And today I thought I'm just going to go have a look at it, because I've always ignored it and I've always ignored reaction videos to it. But I thought I'll go look at it, and I came across this guy's channel, and he has multiple videos that are just slinging pure hatred at Australia. I don't know if he thinks he's amusing or what his deal is, but I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do a reaction to this video. And in this video, he's basically saying why Australia is the worst country in the world. So that just aggravated me from the get-go. So let's have a look at what he's got to say.
Throughout my entire life, I had always thought that Brazil was the worst place on earth. Just think about it. All the slums, the poverty, the tedious weather, all the diseases running rampant in the streets, and the delusional locals. These things are certainly not the makings of a great country, so you can see why I had always assumed that Brazil was the worst place on earth. But then one day it came to my attention that I had never met an Australian that I did not have extreme disdain for.
At the risk of offending sloths, I listened to the way he's talking, and to me it sounds like what I would expect a sloth to sound like. Actually, when I look at him, he actually looks a bit like a sloth. And yes, you will have noticed that instead of doing a freeze frame from his video, since most of his videos are freeze frame anyway, I'm just going to randomly put in my own freeze frames when I talk, because I can't even stand to look at the guy.
This is when I decided to research Australia. I researched Australia's history, its people, its culture, the ways of life in the country, and everything else you could possibly want to know about a place.
Fortunately for him, Google can actually correct your spelling and tell you what the word is that you were trying to type in. So that even though no doubt he had trouble typing Australia into his Google search, at least Google would have helped him out and prompted him so that he could at least find pages that he was looking for. And the other bonus with Google is that it does do child-friendly pages. You know, the pages that actually you can set the language to easy so that someone with poor literacy skills can read that page.
Well, it did not take long until I was struck with the realization that I had been falsely labelling Brazil as the worst country in the world. Brazil remains a close second in the discussion of which country is the worst country, followed by the likes of Ireland, South Africa, North Korea, and Jordan.
So essentially, if it was a country with an easy to spell name, no more than 5 letters, then they get to be added into the mix because he knows how to say them and spell them, no doubt. I will just say I have I should say acquaintance, but I am a huge fan of someone from South Africa who now lives in Switzerland, and she is one of the nicest people I've met. My family has Irish heritage, so yeah, this guy's, at least he's sharing the love, right?
But once you look at the facts, I'm sure that there will be no doubt in your mind that Australia is easily the worst country on earth. Let's just start off by stating the most obvious fact. Australians have easily the second most irritating accents on earth, beaten only by South Africans.
ironically, I was just thinking that either it's something about his accent that annoys me, or the fact that he's having to sit there and as carefully sound out his words as he reads his script that's bugging me. And, I'm not having a go at people with poor literacy, but if you do struggle with reading and you're going to make a YouTube video, perhaps you should, maybe rehearse it first.
Every time I hear a pathetic Australian say, "might," I just want to punch them in their good-for-nothing liver. Since it's common knowledge that all Australians are alcoholics, a punch to an Australian's liver would most likely be fatal.
Not only do we say might, we say Vegemite. So, I might have some Vegemite on my toast tonight. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. And, after that, I wash it down with a whole goonie because, who doesn't love a whole goon bag after dinner? Honestly, gotta wonder what's going on in this guy's brain. If there's anything going on in this guy's brain.
Now, before we go any further, let us just be reminded that Australia is a country built on convicts. It is literally a country built on the criminals that no one else wanted. A country built on convicts is never going to be a great country, so it shouldn't really come as a shock that Australia is such a horrible place all these years later.
So this guy clearly researched really, really hard. Because, that is so correct. Not. Let me see. What is it? 1/3 of Australians were not actually born here. We have a huge multicultural society. And what about convict heritage? Sure, some of us do have the odd convict in our heritage. That's going back so many generations. And generally, one in, that level of generation. So we're hardly a bunch of convicts. But hey, if he wants to come here, I'm sure we can show him how Australians behave towards people like him. Then he might think we're all a bunch of convicts.
Australians are pathetic. So pathetic that they actually once lost a war to a bunch of birds. The Emu War saw Australia going up against 20,000 emus on Australia's home turf. The Emu army suffered a loss of only 2,500 emus in their battle against Australia and its gun-wielding barbarians. In the end, the emus emerged victorious against the primal-natured Aussies.
So if you want to actually find out the facts, the real facts of this so-called Emu War, and actually find out what it was, there is actually a video in my playlist that is about the Great Emu War. No, it wasn't a war. There was no emu army. But let's let this guy enjoy his little delusion just for the moment.
How these people survive on an island filled with some of the most dangerous creatures ever known to man is beyond me. The same people who lost a war against a bunch of dumb birds are the same people who managed to live in harmony with nature on an island filled with countless venomous snakes, insects and spiders. And speaking of the spiders, have you seen the size of the spiders in Australia? Their common house spiders are the size of our average pet rabbits.
Now I'm guessing that perhaps rabbit is too long a word for him to type into Google, because I would otherwise suggest that he actually look up rabbit in Google and find out how big a rabbit actually is, because I've actually never come across a rabbit that would fit in the palm of my hand. Let me know if you have though.
Perhaps Australians are just so stupid that they mistake spiders for dogs, and that's why they aren't frightened of them. I mean, most people in the Western world are not afraid of dogs. There are more dogs than babies in some streets near me, so it would make perfect sense for that to be the case in Australia.
Does anyone else find it disturbing that this guy has made note of how many dogs there are in his street as opposed to how many babies there are in his street? Because to me, That screams dark triad, sociopath, psychopath, one of the above, all of the above. Tells me that there's something really off about this guy. I'll also note that he's gone from talking about them being the size of a rabbit and then forgetting that that's what he was talking about and talking about dogs. Dogs and rabbits are actually two different species, just in case this guy didn't realise that in the first place.
Either way, these horrid creatures just give us one more reason to avoid all contact with Australia at all costs, and to encourage our loved ones to do the same. They are also all too cheap to buy anything, which is why 40% more software is pirated in Australia than in the United States. The image on screen now is an IQ map of the world. This image depicts the average IQ in each country around the world. As you can see, Australia has the lowest average IQ out of every single country on the planet.
So do you think he added the colours to that map himself, or he just downloaded that map randomly in relation to something else and then decided to come up with this genius statistic of his? Because we know that it's definitely not a real statistic. In fact, none of the statistics that he's put on here are real. I actually removed a portion prior to that because it was talking about things that YouTube doesn't like. So I'm not having my video flagged because of him. So there is a gap in the video. I'll just let you know that now. Because my IQ is high enough for me to understand the things that I need to do to make sure that my video doesn't get flagged in YouTube and buried in the algorithm.
This would explain how they managed to lose a war to a bunch of birds. It would also explain why Ken Ham is regarded as one of the most intelligent Australians, and it would explain why Australians are also arrogant, bigoted, and racist.
Hey dude, do you think you could maybe give us an example of what you mean when you say arrogant, bigoted and racist? Because, well, sometimes those things are better when they're demonstrated by someone who is perhaps arrogant, bigoted and racist, rather than just having it thrown out there into the YouTube world.
And now here we have 4chan creator Moot expressing his disdain for Australians. As you can see, it appears that Australians are incapable of going anywhere or touching anything without destroying it.
So this is one that probably needs a little bit of explaining for a few people. 4chan, if you've not heard of it, is a somewhat disgusting website, I believe it is, where basically the dregs of the earth go and they talk about things such as PEDO type stuff and yeah, really disgusting stuff, images that should never be put on the web, etc. So the fact that this guy is getting his statistics from 4chan is rather disturbing. I think that tells us everything that we need to know about him as an individual. And just because he loves it so much, I'm just going to add in the word might and Vegemite.
Perhaps this comes down to their terrible education systems. It's okay, Australia, I'll give you a free pass on this one. I don't blame you. I blame the Australian school systems. There are better ways of getting electrolytes than drinking piss. Speaking of how dumb Australians are, I've always been bewildered by how they're all such cowards. Usually dumb people are very brave. I'll give you an example of this now. Here is a video of an Australian eating a cactus.
So yeah, I've just edited out that entire section of his video because, for starters, I don't even know the source of the video that he was using. He's claiming that one video is an Australian eating cactus and another video is an American eating cactus. And it just proves how dumb Australians are, or something like that. I'm like, okay, good on you, guy. Way to go. Have to say, I've been told that cactus is actually really tasty. Obviously you don't eat it as the plant with all the spikes in it, But in Mexico, when it's actually sliced and barbecued, it's supposed to be really, really delish.
Can you even name a single good thing to ever come out of Australia? Please, I would love to hear it. If anyone can think of anything, then please tweet me your examples at Rag Reynolds on Twitter, or leave a comment or whatever else. You're welcome, society. I'm Rag Reynolds. Goodbye.
So you heard him. His name's Rag Reynolds, and he's invited you to go and tweet him on Twitter and tell him what's good about Australia. Of course, personally, I would just ignore the guy, because at the end of the day, he's just a big, puffed up fool who's clickbaiting, basically. Hence the reason why I didn't even bother to argue any of the points that he made in this video, because it was way more fun just to make fun of him and just point out how much of a douchebag he truly is. So thanks for listening. I know it was a slight diversion from my usual content, but you know, sometimes you just got to do it. So why not? Now, some of the images that you've seen throughout are actually part of an upcoming video that I'm working on, which are some of the best things in Australia, or best big things in Australia, and also some runners up. So that will be coming out in the near future, but I thought just for today I would just make fun of some moronic twat who clearly just likes making clickbait, and for some reason has decided to make Australia the target of his clickbait. So thanks for listening. If you're new, please subscribe. Hit the like button if you didn't really hate this video, of course, and also leave a comment below. Feel free to leave a comment saying what all the brilliant things are that have come out of Australia, because my personal opinion is we're pretty damn good, and I hope this guy never comes to Australia, because he's going to learn that, well, he's not going to be liked by Australians, that's for sure. So thanks for listening. I'll catch you in the next one.